Hi beauties, it's me Alyssa. Um, this video is going to be a little bit different, more heartfelt if anything else. Um, it's Sunday. I usually don't make videos on Sundays, um, but I have to do this video. I've already discussed it with my husband, and at this point it's like, what do I have to lose? What do we have to lose? I'm going to turn my music off. This is my Sunday jam. I listen to gospel music on Sundays when I'm feeling a little bit anxious. So for those of you who don't know about my history, I'm going to start off with that. I have suffered from infertility for a very long time, since I had my son. And I ended up going through fertility treatment at this clinic in the Bronx, called CFCC, and they were basically trying to help me conceive for years. It never happened for me. They always gave me one reason or another, and they continued to send me elsewhere. And of course, when you leave a serious relationship, the urge or the want to have another kid is sort of minimized, because why am I going to have a kid and I'm not even in a relationship? So I pretty much let it rest. Last year, I seen a fertility specialist, and they told me that everything was a mess inside of me and that I needed IVF. And I pretty much just left it to God. I said, if I'm going to have another kid, I'm going to have it when the time is right. Maybe it's not meant for me to have a baby, but I have two beautiful children, so I'm just going to stick with that. Well, I met my husband, and it happened. And the clinic, of course, aided me in allowing it to happen somewhat, and it happened, and we couldn't have been happier. We found out about this baby 2 weeks before we had originally planned to get married. So we had an appointment at CFCC at on October, no, not October, on September. We got married October 3rd. So it had to be late September, maybe September something. I don't know the exact date, but it was the end of September. And when we found out we were 5 weeks pregnant, and we went in and we were like, yay, let's get this first prenatal appointment. Now, my history is I've had 3 premature babies. I knew that if I ever got pregnant again, the possibility of a premature baby would have been a little high. But with my son, I had a cerclage, a procedure called a cerclage, where they stitch up your cervix, and it allows you to carry longer. With my son, he was born 5 pounds 14 ounces, no complications. We were both home at the same time. He stayed in a hospital for a little over a week for some jaundice, but everything was okay. So with this pregnancy, I was like, well, I know the risk. With C-sections, you can always possibly die with a C-section, because I know I'm going to have a C-section. But I was like, they were so good with my son that I'm going to be okay. With my first daughter, she died at 24 weeks. No, 25 weeks. I gave birth to her. I was 15 years old, and I went into the hospital, and I was already 10 centimeters, and they said, we have to do a rush delivery. Now, outside, I have a C-section scar that goes this way, and inside, I'm up and down. Now, it's called a classical when you're up and down inside, and basically when you have more pregnancies, the possibility of rupture becomes to the forefront, and they start to worry about it. Well, with my second daughter, my first daughter passed away 52 days after life, and then I got pregnant a year later at 16, and my daughter survived. She was hospitalized for 3 months, but yes, she was born premature. And again, they did a classical, because when the babies are small, the uterus is small, so to get to the baby, it's a little difficult. With my son, they knew the history of those 2 babies, and it had been some years later when I got pregnant with him, and they basically said, listen, we're going to do this procedure called a cerclage. You probably have cervical incompetence. There's no real way to know, but being that you've had 2 premature babies, we're just going to go ahead with cervical incompetence. I was like, let's do it. He was born premature, but at 35 weeks as opposed to 24, 25, and 26. Now let's fast forward back to this. So we've already established that when you have classical C-sections, the risk of hemorrhage and all type of other stuff is at the top. But when you deal with doctors who you assume are good, you're like, I'm going to be fine. Well, this pregnancy, my husband and I went a week before we were supposed to get married, and we seen a midwife. We did not see a doctor. The midwife looked at us, and she was going through my medical history, and she looked at us and she pulled out a paper. I'll just use this paper. And she started drawing a diagram on this paper. And she started saying that the world was overpopulated, people needed to stop having children, and she looked at myself and my husband, and she told us that we needed to abort the baby, that the baby was nothing but a ball of cells, it doesn't even have a heartbeat, if we just take this magical pill, the baby will be no more. When I get really stressed out and really overwhelmed, my body goes into shutdown mode. And when I say shutdown mode, I'm aware of everything that's going on around, but I go into this comfort within myself, and I pay attention to nothing. I hear, but I'm paying attention to nothing. When I left, I broke down and I called my older sister, Catherine, and I was like, this midwife just told us to have an abortion. She told us it makes no sense to overpopulate the world more and put another kid into this world, that we need to just get rid of the baby. Now, as you can imagine, going through infertility for so many years and finally finding out that you're pregnant and you're getting married and you found the man of your dreams, you're ecstatic. You're like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I literally, hold on one second. I literally took about a million gazillion pregnancy tests. And I dated all of them because I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be sure that I was pregnant, and my husband literally was like, you need to stop taking these pregnancy tests. I was happy. That woman ripped my soul from me. She broke everything in me, but I had to put on a brave face because my wedding was in 2 weeks. And I didn't want anyone to know at the wedding what my husband and I were going through, or what my future husband and I were going through. After I got married, I got really sick and was in the bed a lot. And then the depression started taking over. I was depressed. I was hurt because I'm like, am I gonna die? Oh, her conversation was, you're gonna die, you're crazy for having this baby, didn't you already have a baby that died, this baby's gonna die, do you want to die, do you want your baby to die, do you want to watch another baby die? And again, when I left, I broke down, and I got married, and I had a beautiful Central Park wedding, and the day after my wedding, everything declined. I felt bad that I had married this wonderful man, and he was suffering because he was watching me cry. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how to help. And all I could think about was that I was going to die. I am religious. I believe in God. I believe that there is a place that we go in the afterlife, and I believe that abortion is wrong. And I would never think about having an abortion. Hello, I had a kid at 15 years old and at 16 years old. And that's nothing to brag about. But I've taken care of my daughter and I've taken care of my son from way back when I had kids young and I was making careless, childish decisions. But as an adult, you're like, why am I in a situation where I have to get an abortion, where I have to contemplate getting an abortion and taking a life? Because realistically, at 6 weeks, your baby has a heartbeat. Whether it is a ball of cells, it forms into something relatively quick. Well, that was only the beginning of our struggles. That was only the beginning of our heartache and what was to come. We ended up staying at CFCC because they have all my medical records. I've been going to them since I was 15 years old. So I'm like, they have all my medical records. I'm a grown woman. They've been inside of me millions of times to know what's going on. They know every single thing that's happened with my body. As a woman, I want to stick with this clinic. I never reported that woman because my spirit was just like, you're gonna get through this. But I didn't get through it, and I'm still not through it, let's be honest. We seen a doctor at 7 weeks pregnant. And of course, at 7 weeks pregnant, now I'm like not feeling good, and I'm depressed, and I'm hurting. And he was like, well, you know the risk. We've seen you. We're going to monitor you closely. Having this baby is a decision that you and your husband decided to make. So we're going to make sure that you're in good hands. That was the first and the last time I seen that doctor. My husband and I am currently 5 months pregnant. And we've had about 20 doctor's appointments. And we have seen about 15 different students. CFCC is a part of the Montefiore franchise, I guess you want to call them. And it is a teaching hospital. Montefiore is a teaching hospital. So when we say 15 different doctors, they're students, or 15 different students, they're fellows. So that doctor that had seen us at our 7-week appointment, someone's honking their horn, and it's really annoying. But I had to find out what that horn was because it was extremely annoying. So we have seen 15 different students. The doctor that we seen at 7 weeks has fellows. I think he has about 5 people that he helps become an obstetrician gynecologist, or gynecologist obstetrician. As you can imagine, thinking that you can die in a pregnancy, it hurts that you have no relationship, because this is just an example of what my husband and I would go through. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm such and such and such and such. What's your name? Okay, so let's go in the computer and find out about your history. Oh, we see that you have this and this and this and this and this, and this pregnancy is high risk. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And then my husband and I are looking at each other and we're like, okay. And we start talking to this person, this fellow, this doctor, if you may. And each time we have an appointment, it's literally the same thing. Because I didn't know this prior to getting pregnant. We found this out after getting pregnant, that I really can die being pregnant right now. That this baby really can die. The midwife's approach was completely wrong because she didn't explain anything. She just told me I was stupid for having a baby and I needed to kill it. But finding out, not even from the clinic, finding out from research is when you're classical, you leave scar tissue. And although I had those babies many, many, many years ago, my kids are not babies anymore. I didn't know the risk. And if I would have known the risk, I wouldn't be pregnant right now. Because who wants to die, and who wants to have a baby that can die? The reason why I'm making this video is because there is something called placenta accreta that many people don't even know about. I didn't. Placenta previa is different from placenta accreta. Placenta previa is when you have a low-lining placenta that covers your cervix, and most women it changes when you get further along in your pregnancy, and some women it doesn't. Well, placenta accreta and procreta and increta are basically when you have scar tissue and you have your placenta and you have your uterus, which is what's the woman, and the placenta is what is of the baby. It helps the baby breathe and get the nutrients from mom, and that's where the umbilical cord and the mom connect. The mom's uterus connects. What happens is the placenta embeds inside of your uterus, which it's not supposed to do. It's just supposed to attach. It goes inside of the uterus and it starts trying to find vessels to connect to because it needs that source for the baby. Now, all of the medical stuff, I'll leave a website below that explains it, March of Dimes, and women who have gone through it. The complications of it is when you go in that operating room, the placenta can't detach from the uterus because it's so embedded in it. So what happens is it builds blood vessels, and I'm gonna leave a picture somewhere in this to show you how weird it looks. It makes blood vessels, and if anyone knows, your blood vessels are like the things that carry blood, and it's like arteries as well that carry the blood to your heart, and if you slit your wrist the wrong way, you'll bleed out. Well, if you snip one of these vessels the wrong way, you bleed to death. The baby may make it, but you may bleed to death. You may also bleed when you're like 7 months pregnant and hemorrhage and die because you have literally a couple minutes to get to the hospital. I didn't know this, and I know it now. And the doctors are aware of it, or the fellows are aware of it. And I'm going to break this video up into different videos because I don't want to get emotional on camera. Now, knowing all of this, you would assume that the doctors would be more aware, more cautious, more caring. You would be able to call them if something goes wrong because you're stressed. We see no one that we can name by name. We have no numbers. My son's life is at risk, and if I die having him, I die having him, but I want to know that he stands a chance. Now, my husband's at work and I'm here alone. My son is with his father. And if something happens to me today, no one will know because I'm at home alone. If I bleed out, there's no one to call. I have to call 911 and pray to God they get here soon enough, or pray to God I'm conscious enough to call 911 myself. I started writing my son a book. It's a diary. And it basically, there's a little post that I write talking to him because I don't know if I'm going to be here, you know? And I don't know if he's going to make it, and I just want to look back at something. Now I'm going to tell you the complaint that I have and why I need you guys to help my husband and I. I don't want to die, and I don't have to die. I shouldn't die. I shouldn't have to die. We weren't aware of the risk before we got pregnant. We became aware of the risk way into our pregnancy when our baby had already formed arms, legs, you know, a head, to where making the choice of having an abortion became not an option. Because again, if I had an abortion, I could still die. I can still hemorrhage and die. We don't see a doctor. We don't have anyone on our team. It's him and I. We lean on each other and we don't tell anyone what we're going through. Very small amount of people know what we're going through. And I say small, I think maybe about 2 or 3 people know what we're going through. But they still don't understand. Because when I cry at night, he's wiping my tears. When I'm screaming, he's wiping my tears and holding me and telling me it's going to be okay. And he's afraid. I don't understand why it's okay for CFCC to know what I'm going through and not to care. So remember this cerclage that I mentioned before. The cerclage that basically helps you carry a baby longer. We were scheduled to have that cerclage 5 times. 4 of those times the hospital called and rescheduled on us. Now, I have been going to therapy because of what this woman told us about I'm going to die and the baby's going to die, because I've been a nervous wreck. Shaking, having nightmares, not able to sleep, staying up late, keeping my husband up late where he's sleeping at work. Back and forth inside of the emergency room thinking that something's going wrong for one way or another. And I've been seeing a therapist. I see 2 therapists actually. I'm not on any medication. They don't think I need it. I don't think I need it. I'm traumatized, actually. If you want to put it in a word, I'm traumatized from what this woman told me when I was so happy about being pregnant, and she ruined my life and told me everything that can happen. And the funny part is, it doesn't have to happen. You know that someone's sick, you know that someone can possibly die. You do everything in your power to save them. Well, no one's doing anything to save me and to save my son. They're just letting us float. The cerclage was supposed to take place again for the 5th time this past Friday. Again, this is Sunday. I called at 7:30. They were busy. I called at 8. They were busy. I called at 9. They were busy. And finally, someone called me at 9:30 and told me, it's an emergency and we can't see you, so you're going to have to reschedule. They rescheduled me for Monday. I am a mother of 2 children. A Monday is not good for me. A Monday is not good for me because my husband's only off on Friday and Saturday. So a Monday would mean that no matter the complications, I would be there by myself in the hospital going through a surgery, going through a procedure, and my husband will be nowhere around. And children aren't allowed on labor and delivery floor. If anyone knows that this week, children are off from school. So my children would be with me every single day. How am I going to get a procedure done? And then when I tell them that I'm going through these issues, they look at me like I'm crazy. Like I'm not allowed to have responsibilities. Because of my history as well, I'm supposed to have cervical limb checks where they check inside with a probe via ultrasound, and they see if your cervix is shortening. If your cervix is shortening, that's bad. That may be an impending miscarriage because a baby isn't viable until 24 weeks, which is, we have another couple weeks for that. I went to the doctor the other day. I had a phone call. Okay, so let's rewind. We were hospitalized for a couple days because I was contracting. No, I was supposed to have the cerclage done. I started contracting, and they couldn't do the cerclage while I'm contracting because it would irritate your uterus even more. They thought they saw what was a blood clot, which they assumed was a placenta abruption, where your placenta detaches. They told my husband and I that our baby could possibly be brain dead, that he wouldn't function right, that he probably lost a bunch of blood, that they were probably going to have to force us to have a miscarriage. And again, we're in the hospital and he's holding my hand and I'm crying, and they ran a whole bunch of blood tests and they're doing these sonograms, and they kept seeing this blood clot and they kept seeing this blood clot. They ended up telling us that they were going to discharge us from the hospital because there was nothing that they can do. And when they discharged us from the hospital, I looked at my husband, baby, if I die, just hold my hand, because I don't know what's going to go on. Also, from placenta abruption, you can bleed internally. And the baby can die and you can die. Which, again, I never knew about. My husband never knew about. We didn't even prepare for that because we were thinking about something completely different. And what ended up happening was they discharged us and they scheduled us all these appointments. And there was no blood clot. What ended up happening was when you contract, you leave what looks like a blood clot between the placenta and the uterus. And it looks like that dark shade is a clot when all it really is a contraction. I didn't complain. I was just happy that my baby was okay and he didn't lose any blood and there was no bleeding going on internally, and that I got to be pregnant another day, because each day being pregnant is one step closer to holding him. Well, I had a fall before that where my knees were extremely damaged. And when I had this fall, I went to the emergency room immediately and they had saw placenta previa, where your low-lining placenta covers your cervix. And when they seen this placenta previa, they said, you're too early, it's not going to cause any damage. But then when I fell, it made sense that possibly I could have a placenta abruption. I went to the clinic, CFCC, and I asked to see a doctor. And the doctor told me that if I wasn't bleeding vaginally, that she was not going to see me, and she sent me away. A week later was when I was hospitalized and when they thought that they saw a blood clot inside of me. We have not been treated fairly at this clinic. First of all, my sister just gave birth to my nephew and he is gorgeous. And although her pregnancy was happy-go-lucky, the one thing that no matter if she had bumps in the road or not was that she had a doctor. My best friend, who I call my sister, we've been friends for more than 13, 14, 15 years, is pregnant, and she has a doctor. If she has an issue, she calls her doctor, and her doctor helps her and tells her to come in or not to come in. When my husband and I go through issues like the fall that we had, we have to call a number, and they basically tell us to go to the emergency room. And then when we go to the emergency room, when they discharge us, they tell us that we need to go see our OB, and we don't have an OB. No matter which appointment they've given me, I've gone to every single appointment. And each and every time I go to an appointment, I see someone completely different. Now let's get back to, I just had an appointment the other day. I've been having contractions ever since my fall, which, as you can imagine, I'm scared because I have a history of incompetent cervix, which no one actually knows for sure. And I haven't had the cerclage, so I can have a miscarriage at any given point in time. So I went in and I seen one of the fellows. I've seen her more than twice, more than 3 times. And she looked at me and told me, I don't see you again for 4 weeks. Why are you here? I said, well, I'm here because Dr. Such and Such, who was seeing me in the hospital when I was hospitalized, very wonderful woman, and I hate to put a color to how she treated my husband and I, but she was really welcoming and really nice. But again, she's at the hospital. We get seen at a clinic. She ended up saying, I'll call you every week, and she has called me every week. So one of these days she called me, said, your cerclage is going to be on Friday. It was Wednesday. Your cerclage is going to be on Friday. Come in Thursday, and we're going to get this McKenna, which is a progesterone shot that also helps your cervix. We're going to try to do everything. I'm calling personally. I'm having meetings with other doctors who can help you. But go in tomorrow. If I can make it, I'll make it. If not, you're going to see Dr. Such and Such. I seen Dr. Such and Such, and Dr. Such and Such was like, why are you here? You're just here to fill out papers. Well, I was like, Dr. Such and Such from the hospital basically told me to come in because I'm contracting, and before you guys do the cerclage, she wants to make sure my cervix is still a nice, decent length to do it. She looked at me and said, I'm not checking you. I'm not due to see you for another 4 weeks. When you're high risk, you're supposed to see a doctor every 2 weeks. You're also supposed to have cervical lymph checks every 2 weeks. The last time I had a cervical lymph check was 2 weeks ago, so therefore I will be due for another cervical lymph check. There is no cervical lymph check. So I'm walking around and I'm putting myself on bed rest because another fellow told me I should be on bed rest, but that was fellows ago. So I'm walking around not knowing if my cervix is shortening. I don't have the cerclage placed. I don't have a doctor to call to say, hey, they rescheduled me for the cerclage. I can't do it this day because I have my children. And my son's life is at risk. My husband has missed more than 10 days, 12 days, 13, 14, 15 days of work because I'm at the hospital because I'm having pain. I'm having complications. I had a bleed early on in my pregnancy where we thought we were going to lose the baby. And each time we are hospitalized, and I have a book this thick of hospital discharge papers. And every time we go to the hospital, when we leave, they tell us to follow up with our obstetrician, which we do not have. Again, I don't want to die. And I don't want our son to die. It's not fair. I didn't know the risk. And this clinic helped us get pregnant. And then once we got pregnant, they tell us all these things that can possibly go wrong when we're already pregnant, when this should have been a discussion before the baby. I'm pregnant now. So that discussion doesn't even need to be had. What they're going to do in the future to protect my son and I is what's important, and we don't even have anyone to call. They refuse to see us. I went to administration to tell administration I am severely depressed because of what this woman told me, that I'm going to die, and every single day I'm scared that I'm going to die, and every time I walk I'm afraid I'm going to die, and every time I feel a cramp I'm afraid I'm going to die and that this baby is going to die, and I've been traumatized. And I went to administration, and administration told me, I said, why is this woman still working here when she basically isn't allowed to tell someone to have an abortion? To go have an abortion, that your baby's nothing, it's just a ball of cells, and to tell me that I'm going to die, that my child's going to die, and ask me, do I want to hold another child while they're taking their last breath? Administration, the guy who works in administration, sent a email with my information on it to all the people in the clinic, letting them know that I didn't want to be in the clinic anymore. He did nothing about the woman who basically said what she said. She still works there. When we go to the clinic, we still see her. He basically invaded my privacy, contacted the social worker and psychiatrist of the clinic and told them, oh, she's not going to be here anymore, so you're not going to see her. And of course, I see two therapists, so they both, one of them contacted me and was like, hey, what's going on? You're leaving? I'm like, no, I went to him complaining about everything that we talk about. And how do you know? She said, well, I got an email. And this email basically said that you didn't want to be here anymore. What I told that guy was not that I didn't want to be there anymore. What I told that guy was basically, this isn't fair, it isn't right, I'm traumatized, I'm going through a lot from what this woman has said to myself and my husband, and I just want something to be done. And I want to be able to have a doctor who's going to be able to see me on a regular basis. What he then said was that I'll call you and let you know if I find a doctor in the clinic who's willing to see you one-on-one. That call never came, but the emails were sent out to everyone telling them I didn't want to be there. So if you can't turn to administration, who do you turn to? If you can't have administration do something about the issues that's going on in the clinic, who do you turn to? It took a lot for me to even come forward and talk about this because it's better to just put a smile on your face and to pretend like everything's okay even when it's not. But it's not okay. It's not okay that my husband is the only person I have to cry on, to talk to about things that he has no idea about. And it's not okay that he has to lean on me to tell me his fears and that he's afraid that he's been married for a short little while and that he's afraid his wife and his son is going to die. I need help. I need someone to tell me, a specialist that deals with high-risk pregnancies. I need one doctor who's going to see me and help me get through this pregnancy and help me make it through this pregnancy and help me in the C-section process and tell me that everything's going to be okay, because no matter what, they're prepared. I don't need to see 20 more doctors or 20 more fellows who are going to tell me nothing. I am tired of talking to people, telling them my name and telling them my history, when you should know that. Because if I've been seen 20-something times and I've seen 15 different doctors, I should have a great team. None of those people even work there anymore. You can't even call and ask for those people because the clinic doesn't even answer the obstetrician number. You have to literally go in and talk to these people and try to demand to be seen, and they still won't see me. I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm due to give birth in 4 months for a scheduled C-section that still isn't even scheduled. I'm supposed to have cervical limbs checked every 2 weeks to make sure I'm not going into preterm labor. And I'm supposed to see a doctor every 2 weeks. My doctor is nobody. My husband's my doctor, my gynecologist, and my best friend, and my husband, and my confidant, and the person I cry on, and my pillow at night. I need help. No one deserves to go through this. No one deserves to have someone look at them and tell them that they're going to die in the very beginning when you didn't even know the risk was even there. No one deserves to have a doctor, an actual doctor, tell them that we're going to hold your hand through this whole thing and never be able to see that person again. I've sent messages to this man. I've had people in the clinic send messages to him, leaving my number to discuss the course of treatment to help with anxiety and make me feel better. And he has refused to even respond to any of those messages. He hasn't called. The person who sees me doesn't even want to see me. The people who see me don't even know what's going on because they're fellows and they only work there for that week and then they're disappearing and you'll never see them again. I don't want to die, and I don't want my son to die. Like, there is a place, there is a doctor who can help me. And I don't even know the first place, where to start to find this. I feel bad for my husband because every day he's scared that he's going to lose his job. He's afraid that he's going to get a phone call and something's going to be wrong with me or the baby. This has been a horrible pregnancy. But what holds firm is that I believe in God and that this baby is still fighting, you know? He's still inside me and he's still growing, and no matter what, no matter the tears, he's still in there and he's still fighting, and as long as he's in there fighting, I'm going to fight for him. I just want to know what my body's doing, the course of action, if my body does this or if my body does that or if my body does nothing. I want one person who I can call and say, hey, doctor, this just happened. I fell yesterday. What do you want me to do? I went to the emergency. They want me to catch up with you. Can I come in to sit and talk with you? We have no one. The clinic refuses to see us. When they do see us, they see us for 2 seconds, and that's it. They send us about our way. They listen to the baby's heartbeat, and they tell us we'll see you in 4 weeks. With my son, it wasn't like this. With my son, I had cervical lymph checks every 2 weeks. I had the cerclage placed on time. I seen 2 doctors. They were doctors, they weren't students. The same doctors that I seen were the same doctors who were within my surgery who helped me and my son make it. All I'm asking is for the opportunity to have this baby have the same. I'm not a kid. I'm grown. I know right from wrong. And I know that the way that we've been treated is not fair. No one deserves to go through this. Like, what pregnant person wants to see 20, 30, 40, 50 doctors? Which pregnant woman wants to see 5 doctors who doesn't even know their names, who has to introduce themselves every single time? Which pregnant person who has a home, who has a vehicle, who has children to feed, wants to worry about not waking up because she bled to death, or having a baby die inside of her because no one's making sure that it doesn't happen? And I feel bad for my husband. Because to be honest, I don't know where I would be right now if it wasn't for him. Like, he goes to work and every single day he tries to put on a brave face, and I know that he's hurting. Like, nothing's going right in this pregnancy. You know what's going right? The baby's in there. The baby has a heartbeat. I am alive today. But we don't even know if that's going to be the case because we don't have anyone who's reassuring us that it is. Help us find a doctor. Help us find a high-risk specialist who deals with placenta previa, placenta accreta, who deals with having to give a C-section under the circumstances of needing blood transfusions. Help us. Like, one of the posts I wrote for my son, I think one of the entries was, it says, "Hi Jelly, my name is Brittany and I'm your mom. I haven't met you yet. And to be honest, I'm so afraid for both of our safeties. You're too young to know why right now, but just know that I'm doing everything in my power to have you right here in my arms. It has taken me some time to appreciate you, but I know that I love you so very much. The day I found out I was pregnant with you was the greatest day of my life, and I wish I could relive that moment for as long as I live. And although it is impossible, I still wish. You are coming here to be with your silly dad, your sometimes mean sister, your dancing little brother, and me, your mom, your protector, and hopefully your friend. I want to tell you a funny story about how your dad and I met and how having you was inevitable. But I'll save that for when I meet you in person, because at the end of the day, I do believe that I'll meet my son, you know? I just want the opportunity to. I'm gonna end this video because I promised that I wasn't gonna cry. Just help us find a doctor. Help us find someone who actually cares about what we're going through. Because I don't want to be here and I don't want to die by myself. And I don't want him to die. I eat right, I get sleep. But it's not enough without a team of people who actually care. I hope that no one has to go through this. I hope that no one has to hear that they're in a high-risk pregnancy and have no one give a damn about it. They give you the news and then they just throw caution to the wind. Most of the sonograms I've had at the ER. I'm gonna end this video. Just help us, please. If you know a doctor in the Bronx, I don't care if it's in Westchester, who can help us have this baby safely, who actually care that we're high risk, and let us know the game plan, you know? Like, let us know what they plan to do to help save me and the baby's life, because I'm open to anything at this point. Inbox us, leave us a message, leave us a comment. Because right now all I have is this baby and my husband, and I don't even know how much longer that's gonna be. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope it helps someone else, you know? Because I don't want to die.